Disney announced today a new special ticket offer, an offer pointed at both Disney kids and adults looking to plan a trip to the Disneyland Resort. Great news for families looking to save a little bit of money, and some very telling and interesting observations that I have for you on this news that we're going to get into in a little bit, including implications, interestingly, for the Haunted Mansion. But first, let's get into the details of that ticket offer. Per Disney, they're selling a 3-day ticket that can be purchased for as little as $50 per day per child and as little as $83 per day per adult. It's a 3-day ticket, so that math works out to $150 per kid for the entire 3-day trip and $249 per adult for those 3 days, all in. That's kind of great, if you don't mind my saying. That seems like a pretty good deal. Note, though, that this is for visits between Monday and Thursday only. This offer is not extended to the weekends, to Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, which actually is curious. Sidebar. It's curious because we've been noticing for the past at least a year or more that the weekends are no longer the busiest times in the park. It is frequently the case where the busiest days that we experience in the parks are Mondays and Tuesdays. Sundays are quiet, quiet as heck. So it is kind of interesting that they're still trying to apply that logic, that theory, of trying to spread guests into the weekdays when it's very clear that they've already achieved that. They have achieved that through what they're doing with the reservation system and Magic Keys. I digress. Let's keep going with this ticket offer. Another great part about this offer is that it's for the summer season, when kids are out of school and when parents need the financial break the most. The date range for the tickets is June 10th and September 26th. That's the window with which you can make your reservations after buying these tickets. June 10th through September 26th, which is a pretty healthy stretch. That gets you a lot of good show that's happening in the parks during that time. Pixar Fest will be in full swing, open and running for the entire span of this ticket offer, and that's a fun event for families, particularly the playtime experience, the Pixar Playtime at the Fantasyland Theater. Fantasmic will be up and running as well. That show begins on May 24th, and that's going to be showing twice nightly forever. So you'll have that's a great opportunity to see that show. Also, depending on when you try and book, you might see Halloween Time at Disneyland. The Halloween season begins on October 23rd. That is within the range of those dates, and we should assume that some iteration, I don't know if you caught our last news video about this, about the Haunted Mansion, some iteration, some version of the Haunted Mansion is supposed to be open at that time. One thing we don't have as of yet is a pricing calendar, so I'm not sure which days are eligible for that $50 or $83 ticket, which days those are, but my suspicion is that those will be for June and July, as those historically are slower months than August and September. Those are traditionally much more busy because of the Halloween season. So those are the basics. And by the way, these tickets go on sale May 29th. So it's between June 10th and September 26th. The prices will begin at $50 per day for a 3-day ticket. This is 3-day tickets only, $50 per day for kids and $83 per adult. They could go up. We don't yet have a pricing calendar as of yet, and there's lots of shows to be enjoyed during that time. So it sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Let's get into the analysis, though, of what this means, because I do have thoughts. There's some interesting tells about the timing of this particular offer. We just completed a State of Disneyland report on our main channel. These reports are done every other week and are a way for us to communicate to you our impressions of how the park is doing, what's happening, what is the State of Disneyland. In our report last Wednesday, we were kind of shocked to see the parks as dead as they were, relatively speaking. Wait times were visibly lower across the board from last year, year over year. Now, the confusion that I expressed in that report were founded mostly in the idea that at that time, it has been the case for a couple of weeks now, the parks are clearly, obviously, visibly not at full capacity or even close to full capacity. They're not even approaching it. There's lots of space in the parks, lots of space in the queues. That's all happening, yet you still can't buy, or you couldn't at the time of this report, buy a single-day ticket. You couldn't buy a multi-day ticket. You couldn't make a reservation as a Magic Key holder. You could not get into the park on a very not crowded day. And this suggests that Disney is still actively trying to finesse the system, actively manipulating the system to control who's in the park and when. But probably to not very good effect, because they tried something on, and again, I'm speaking within that separate scenario that I witnessed on that Sunday, but I mean, I've seen other days like this. They tried to do something, it didn't work, and the result was an empty-ish park. We also observed back in March the imbalance of the parks due to this finesse, the dichotomy of the crowds between two periods of a similar ticket offer. There was a $50 kids ticket offer last winter, and the parks definitely saw a response. February and March were way busier than we had seen previously, even during the winter season, the Christmas season. It was kind of intense, actually. Then, as soon as that offer period ended, like literally the week next, the parks were comparatively dead again. I said at the time in that video, the people have spoken, and that is, they can't afford to go to Disneyland. At least there are a growing subset of guests who cannot afford to go to Disneyland. Disneyland has always been expensive. That's never been an argument, but people just found a way. They found a way to sort of get there. Fewer guests today are finding that way. They're just opting out now. More guests are waiting for sales like this, especially guests with families, because that's where the prices, the cost just tends to multiply, is those guests with families. So they're waiting for these $50 tickets, which brings us to today, where we are again experiencing lower than typical, lower than I would expect crowds in the parks at a time of year when we should be not exactly big time full parks, but more so. There's no reason why February should be busier than April. February should not be more crowded than April, but that is exactly what is happening right now. Meanwhile, we've also noted, especially last year, that June and July, quiet. Deader than I've ever seen it during those years, or during those months. This looks to be like Disney trying to fill that gap. They're trying to entice guests into the park when they know their expectation is we're probably not going to be filling the parks in June or July, and they want to fill the parks in June and July. They very much want that, I believe. So that's great news. That's great news for you guests who have been, who say that Disneyland is too expensive. Look, $50 a day for a kid, that's great. That's a really good price. $83 a day for an adult, that's a really good price for those families who are trying to spend 3 days in the parks. That's a really good deal, even if it is Monday. At least it's during the summer season. Kids are out of school, so that's less of an issue. So this is a very nice deal for families. Also, very good timing, a very good deal for those guests who've been holding out because of the ride closures. Haunted Mansion, Splash Mountain, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. This window, this opportunity will include, we're hoping, an opportunity to enjoy the Haunted Mansion if you've been waiting for that. August 23rd, that's when the Halloween season begins. And per the initial announcement that Disney gave about their 2024 calendar, this year's calendar, they did include the Nightmare overlay for the Haunted Mansion in their update. Supposed to be. I will observe, and it pains me to say this, that update with the new ticket offer from Disney that just updated on Thursday, it made mention of Halloween time specifically and Plaza de la Familia specifically, but it didn't actually specifically mention the Haunted Mansion or the Nightmare overlay, which if I were trying to sell tickets, especially trying to sell tickets to guests who have been abstaining from going to Disneyland because of the ride closures, I would put that in big bold letters. By the way, you're going to get to ride Haunted Mansion, possibly, during the season if you pick your right date range. But they didn't, which kind of gives me pause and makes me wonder if they are in fact on time. I thought they were on time or even possibly ahead of time. But that, this announcement kind of gives me pause on that. I'm a little bit more hesitant to say that given this, and it's not obvious, this is just my own inference, but dude, these announcements, the things they put on the Disney Parks blog, they're very carefully curated, very carefully crafted and worded. And that means that they're not going to say anything in that announcement if they weren't positive that it were going to be the case. So there is still room for the notion that the Haunted Mansion may not open on August 23rd based on this announcement. Again, though, that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that Disney has offered a very nice deal for park guests, families, people who are trying to save a little money. $50 for kids per day and $83 for adults per day is a pretty nice deal, especially considering these tickets aren't often discounted. That's just not a thing that Disney does often. Hope you all are able to take advantage, but if you're not, please do enjoy FreshBaked, enjoy our show here, and on our main channel at FreshBaked, where we give you guys updates on what's happening, what's the current status of things, what's going on in the parks, and then also on our third channel. We have 3 channels. There's our main channel, FreshBaked. FreshBaked presents the channel you're watching this news report on, and Tours Departing Daily, which is where we just go to Disneyland. We go to Disneyland, turn the camera on. It's you, me, and the park just enjoying the vibes for an hour or so. It's really quite delightful. I hope you guys, if you can't get to the park, catch us there. And then thanks for watching, everybody. You can follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. If you like our show and want to show you support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/FreshBaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. FreshBaked.